The lesson.
Oh, yeah.
And in terms of the episodes that you have done so far, which do you feel has been had the biggest reception?
Kerser. I mean, obviously, Kerser, obviously, man. And Kerser was a highlight too. That came about super organically. I've got to send a big shout out to my man, River City, Julian Woods. Like, he's doing big things just in comedy and all that kind of shit and online content and all that kind of thing now. But yeah, he's a good connect. I met him through Crush City, and he had a connect with Kerser. Kerser was up here shooting a video, and he was like, man, I reckon I'll get Kerser on the podcast, man, and we've always had a rapport, so, DJ Decide, not always had a rapport, but, we've known of one another because DJ Decide, our DJ, he DJ'd for Kerser for a little while, did half a dozen shows with him around the country years ago and stuff like that. Even, I think, maybe did cuts on one of his albums, and Kerser was obviously a fan of Lazy Grey, Ken Othan 750 and all that kind of thing, so, the Kerser episode was big. And then, surprisingly, man, last week, the Shaz episode, dude, that was a big episode, man, with the number two music podcast in the country with Shaz, Number one with Kerser and number one for a while, with Kerser. We were up there for, the better part of a week, but yeah. I mean, the podcast, man, honestly, Biz Beats and the Biz, it bugs us out, man, because we're consistently one of the top 20 music podcasts in the country. Each one of our episodes goes top 20, so there's that many people streaming it. And man, we're going off Apple Podcast numbers, so iTunes numbers and all that sort of shit. And even in 2020, we were the third most streamed podcast on Spotify. So, man, fuck, I can't pick it, it is what it is. In terms of the biggest episode, with hands down Kerser episode, easily. The Curse Effect, man. That's what he said when we left. I remember when we dropped that episode. Actually, no, I think he posted something of us in the studio. He's like, man, I just did a crazy podcast. The table's fucking littered with beers and durry ash and all that sort of shit. And man, we copped 200 followers just off his story alone, just an at in his story. So, definitely the biggest episode, man. But yeah, Shaz was pretty big recently. Spun me out how big Johnny Jewel was, having Jewel on, that was a big episode. That was, that was fucking well and truly top 10, so yeah, we've had some, even Tame a few weeks ago, just at the tail end of 2021. That was a pretty big episode, a lot of history, man, a lot of dudes like hearing that those stories, man, and those dudes, excuse my language, but those cunts live crazy lives, man, the shit they had to deal with, man, as kids, the transits and all that sort of shit, Peter Stevens, and man, Peter Stevens is fucking on some shit, man, and he was in charge of some fucking brolic, brutal motherfucking transits, bro, these dudes copped a hard time, so, some of those stories are crazy, and I think people enjoy hearing them.
When you mention interviewing Kerser, and I've heard parts of that episode. I haven't actually sat down and listened to it front to back, but that's one interview that you've done that we haven't had the pleasure to do yet. We hope that one day, he'll be able to sit down with us and have a chat. But as someone who was around Australian rap before Kerser, and is still heavily entrenched in Australian rap. Not after Kerser, but he's coming to his 10th album, and that was his whole thing, right?
Yeah.
How? First of all, how much of an impact did you see him have, and do you recall the times of when the generation before Kerser, the way that he was received by that generation at that time?
Yeah, definitely.
In comparison to now.
Yeah, definitely.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, certainly, bro. Yeah, I mean, that when Kerser hit, man, Kerser hit big. There wasn't, I'm just trying to think what kind of hit like Kerser prior to Kerser. I can't even think the Hoods had hit already. The Hoods had hit, but Kerser came through on his own wave, man. Kerser came in and just came through, and he was. I think there's a Pre-Kerser and Post-Kerser version of Australian hip hop. There was what existed prior, and there's what has come in his wake. So like, dude, I mean, like, let's be honest, man. Like, there was a lot of fucking shit coming out of Western Sydney post-Kerser, man. A lot of motherfuckers thought they could rap, and we've seen a lot of them come and go. But yeah, there's definitely a Pre-Kerser and Post-Kerser. I suppose the initial reception to Kerser may have been, a reception of, the reception may have been met with a degree of skepticism in terms of what he was doing, but he's a fucking skilled battle MC. I mean, no one could take anything from him, those battles, that battle with 360 and all that sort of shit, man. Like at this point, Kerser's a dude in his 30s, he's a father, he's fucking 10 albums deep. He's changed the game. Like, I even think things like No One Network, man, like what exists here where we're filming from, man, like, the nerves and, the things that have come out of this in some way owe a debt to Kerser, man, like the Chillinits and all that sort of shit. That kind of shit has come post-Kerser, man, Kerser really created that lane, man, but he took that lane from, he himself, he said it on the podcast, he heard Hijack and Torture. He heard Banned in Queensland by Lazy Grey, or Painted with Blood with Ken Oath and all that sort of shit, Like, man, he came off the back of that and reinterpreted it and did his own thing, man, and then fucking went hard, man. The work ethic is, there's not many with that work ethic, Like, there's people that exist. I mean, I think Taunts, like someone like Taunts is fucking, not a Pre-Kerser, but like he was, very unique, very much in his own lane, as were a lot of the Broken Tooth artists, so yeah, man, there's definitely a Pre-Kerser and a Post-Kerser, and I suppose the initial reception to Kerser may have been one of skepticism, but he's proven everyone wrong, man. Like anyone that was a skeptic, he's proven wrong, and he went around the country and brought people with him, as did the Hoods when they popped, like the Hoods, I remember the Hoods, got 750 to support them on the Hard Road tour, and we fucking got booed off stage, man. Oh, we didn't get booed off stage, we did 45 minutes, bam, we smashed the set, but we were fucking like, man, they're chanting hilltops over the top of us. Kerser, he's gone around the country and fucking, like I said, he brought DJ Decide, he got DJ Decide on board. Discourse from the Crate Cartel was his DJ for a while. DJ L Street from Perth, who was heavy in the Perth scene with Hunter and all those dudes. He's his current DJ, man, Kerser's deep in hip hop. You got to give him the props. You got to respect him, man. You got to respect what he does. And like him coming down to our podcast was a big look. We said it on there, man. Like, and people have said to me since that I was pissing in his pocket or something. But nah, to me, man, that was the look, man. Like his presence was, like charitable to us, man, because he needn't have come on our podcast. And shouts to Jay too, JUF, because they came down together, And shouts to his brother Rates, man, because Rates is, Rates is another one I want to hit up. I got to get Rates on, I think you guys have had Rates, haven't you? You guys did Rates, yeah. So Rates is another one I want to talk to, man, and I haven't spoken to him via social media, but we have engaged. Like, he's left comments on the Beers page and, vice versa and all that kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, definitely, man, Kerser, Rates, JUF, man, like Forte at Large. Like, man, there's a handful of dudes that have stuck it out, I mean, look at someone like Forte at Large, man. Like, he's been hosting his own thing, and all that kind of thing, There's fucking, man, dude's been doing this shit before. Even before us, and that's, I got to hand that credit. Biz Beats in the Biz, as a podcast, it's less YouTube focused, but that's something we have to work on with it in time, We're slowly working on that, but yeah, man, these dudes harnessed social media and YouTube and all that kind of thing early and built massive fan bases around it, like they harnessed it. They harnessed it when we were still looking at the internet like, what the fuck is that? Like looking at the internet like pressing a button on a, on a keyboard, man. That's how we were looking at the internet, And yeah, those dudes did it, man. Those dudes did it. So yeah, much props, all props to those guys, 100%.
The lesson. 927. Oh yeah.